the time spent on average by your Gen Z on the phone is about 8 hours a day, just so we know, right? On average, I'm not taking, the top quartile. I'm talking average.
Welcome back to the content category. I'm super excited to be here with Benoit. He's the CEO and founder of Mammoth Media. Benoit, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Cal. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this interview. Just to kind of put the perspective for the audience, we looked at well over 1,000 companies in the content category. It was absolutely overwhelming. But one of the companies that really stood out to us was Mammoth Media. You guys are doing something that I think is really stretching the boundaries of what we think about as content. You guys have created a variety of different platforms and tools, and as also content that is extremely engaging. And I think I look at this as what we would expect from the future of content. And this is why I wanted to have this interview and showcase you guys a part of this category. You're taking a whole different approach than everybody else. So with that, Benoit, I think you should have some slides that we can jump into real quick that maybe gives the audience some perspective of who is Mammoth Media, and then we'll jump directly into questions. Sounds good?
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, Mammoth Media, and thanks for the kind words, by the way. We're definitely doing our best to innovate when it comes to content consumption, but we're really focused on one audience, the Gen Z, and that's why we call ourselves the leading Gen Z entertainment studio. But to give the audience a little bit of perspective of what we do, we have our own apps. We also have built a lot of very creative format on Snapchat. And as well, we have a pretty large network of creators on TikTok that are creating content for us, that are promoting our apps, but also promoting partners' apps and brands as well. But you can see the volume of Gen Zs that we are interacting with. So overall, entertaining on a monthly basis, about 35% of the Gen Zs in the US. So very focused on the US market. But looking at the apps that we have, Wishbone, which was our first app, polling engine. So you side by side, as you can see, you choose which side you are on and you see the results immediately while the rest of the audience interacted. There is also some social features and sharing and commenting and DMing on this app. The next one is Yarn, which was our second app. And Yarn is a new way to read fiction stories, short form in a text format. So it's like you're reading a text message, but also integrate some videos and images, as you can see on the screen. And the last one, which actually we just released in the US, literally a couple hours ago. It's been a soft launch in Australia and the UK for the last 30 days and just made its way to the US a few hours ago, which is another app in the storytelling space, but here extremely interactive with a choose your own adventure format. So you take Yarn, you bring that to a fully gamified experience, leveraging currencies and basically building your own path as you read the story. So those are our key apps. And I'm sure we'll talk later about we know why those formats and how we got to build those formats. And finally, also, we've done a lot on Snapchat. Why Snapchat? This is, again, where our audience is, but also a great way to engage the audience and potentially bring them back into our app. The first one being Wishbone. It has its own Discover channel, close to 20 million MAUs on it, so very large volume on this. And same format as the app, it's a lot of voting. And you vote on questions that are being asked. And the last one, we are the first one to create a Snap Mini. The Mini is called a Prediction Master, which is actually built together in partnership with Snap. And it's all around making prediction on what's going to happen. So it's like Wishbone, but with real facts. We are going to check if what you voted on, it's going to happen or not. So that's us. Really excited to talk more about all of this. I think this is a very exciting in the space. A lot to innovate with, but also a lot changing very quickly. So a lot to talk about.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing the slides. I want to dive into some of those products and your approach, but before I even do that, I'm just curious, is there a backstory behind why you created Mammoth Media?
Yeah, there is. So myself, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. Did my first startup out of college in France, sold it, moved to the US. I've been in LA for the last 17 years now. But what led to really my last startup that I did, or my last venture that I did, was a gaming ad network called Play Heaven. A very large gaming ad network in most of the very big games, but also the small underground games are. SDK was in about 25,000 games in the world. And so I went really deep into the gaming space and realized that the gaming publishers were the best when it came to engaging an audience and monetizing that audience. And so I saw this opportunity after selling that network to actually a gaming developer, that there was a huge opportunity to leverage everything that I learned in gaming, but to apply that to content and media. And so that's how I went and created actually Wishbone, the first app, and then went from that point on, start building, and Mammoth was born.
Interesting. Really interesting. And now it starts to piece together how that makes sense for a lot of the content that you're creating, coming and having that influence from the gaming side and now applying it in certain ways. But I just at a high level want to jump directly into some of the apps that you created. And you already showed us on the slides. You have the Yarn Encounters, you have Wishbone, and a lot of them have a different approach and the type of content and ways in which they engage with your audience. Why this content format? Like, what was the purpose about taking this approach? Is it just general content, entertainment, whatever, and just throwing it at the audience and seeing views?
Yeah, we thought a little bit about it. First, we started with the audience. We knew we wanted to engage the Gen Z audience because they were born with a phone. They were interactive. They were the most used to a phone and consume on the phone. And also, we really focused quickly on more the female side and the male side because the male audience is more focused on games, and we wanted to really spend a ton of time of content. And then when you look at the space about how you consume content in mobile, there's more like the UGC type of content, which the social content, basically, the Instagram of the world. And then you have more the gaming side of the content. But there is we believe, the big gap in between, which is really consuming more premium content. Obviously, we have to thought about the length, and we have to thought about how much interaction there should be with that content. But that is not UGC. There could be some UGC piece, but it's still well curated if it's UGC, or we produce it ourselves. And something that is not fully gaming, because we know that the female audience doesn't want to necessarily play games, except maybe the casual, hyper-casual games. So what could fit in there was really the key, and a big thing that suddenly people realized about a year ago, that $100,000 a minute was not going to cut it with Quibi. We knew that from day one. If you want to be successful, you have to find a format that is not going to require to spend that much money. If not, it's not going to be profitable. And second, that's not what that audience wants. They don't necessarily want to have high production movies on their phone. They want engaging content. And what is defined as quality by that audience is not the dollar amount that you spend to create that content, but it's how innovative and how engaging it is. And so those are all the parameters we work with that we had in mind. And so actually, Wishbone came out as a big brainstorm session that we had in the office. And a lot of people were really focused on the pop culture category, because we knew the Gen Z female was really about pop culture, and there was a ton of content around that. But how would you be able to interact with pop culture content? And back then, we remember the hot, not hot content on the web. That was a very successful format. And it was like, how can you apply that format to pop culture? And that's how Wishbone was built. Can we have two images next to each other and says, I'd rather be on that side? Now it becomes gamified. It's not a game. It's short. It's pretty cheap to produce, but it's very engaging. So that's how we went with Wishbone.
No, it's interesting to see how you apply it, because when we looked at this whole world of, well, first, lifestyle content, it seems like it's difficult because there's so many variations of culture and entertainment that you could go, and it's the majority of the individuals in the space are either trying to create really premium content or just trying to blast you with something that's going to shock you, but none of it really seems as engaging. And you've kind of taken especially with the Wishbone app, a way in which you can share interesting content, but also make it engaging and fun in some form and fashion, but also simple. On the flip side, I really like the components, what you've done with the stories and and I think I'm excited about encounters as well. I didn't even know.
I just kept it for you as a break.
When you look at this whole world of animation and books and that content space, there's nothing really innovative. It's just, can I take a book and then give it to you digitally? Or can I give you a story, give it to you digitally? And even if you can change the story format to short form content, what seems to be the really cutting edge is being able to participate in those stories and change the storylines. And what you guys have done with that, you're like, okay, you guys are really moving forward, I think, this content space, which I just wanted to highlight. I think it's really.
Yeah.
Now,
It is very important, like you said, to engage and interact. The passive consumption may sometimes happen on a bigger screen, longer form, but on short form, you have to interact. We can discuss later on the level of interaction, but you have to make sure that the audience touch the screen.
actually, that's perfect, because I wanted to jump. That was leads right into my next question, because interactions that you have or the ways in which you engage with your audience are really simple. It's voting, you're tapping through stories, you're role playing. It's like really bite-sized ways in which you're having individuals engage. Why this approach of engagement?
So it's actually, it came from a lot of testing as well, right? We didn't just come out with everything the way it is right now. We operate in a very, very lean and mean way where we create, test, get the data, iterate. Everything we do is data driven, right? Obviously, there are some assumptions we make, but at the end of the day, the data tells us what's happening. And so we actually, if you take the example of Yarn, we tested Yarn where you didn't have to tap, where it was just auto playing in front of you in line, where just dropping one after the other, right? So the user didn't have to tap on the screen to get to the next line. Just those two were tested one next to each other as an A/B test, and the level of engagement was at a 2x level on the autoplay versus you tap on the screen. So we learned, and we had learned that also way before on Wishbone, where same thing on the voting mechanism, where you're gonna go and let people go straight into the next one or let people swipe up. We needed to understand what was the right interaction. And we learned that you have to have the right interaction. Sometimes you don't want to have the user to make the effort. Sometimes you want the user to make the effort. And all those interactions are well tested before we push it out. And what we learn at the end of the day is that, yes, you want for that audience, the user to interact. You don't interact, you lose their attention very quickly, because there is a ton of distraction on the phone. There's a ton of distraction on my phone, and I'm a Gen X. There is a ton of distraction probably on your phone, and I would guess you're a millennial. Now, you don't even imagine what happens on the Gen Z phone. It's like freaking like push notification coming down, phone call coming in. It's a snap call. It's nonstop. It's chaos. So if you don't get that user engaged, and what I mean engaged is not just interested about the story, but touching the screen and getting basically actions done, then as soon as one of those distractions come in, they are out. So it is a must, and that's why we built those formats, and now we got to those formats, and even the latest being encounters, where we go to the extreme, where actually they create their own story, so they are deeply engaged in the story itself, and we went even deeper with that's what we call building equity. We let the user build equity in the story. Once you start earning some kind of a currency and you start spending that currency to build your own story, it's the same thing as when you start building a house. When the foundations are in, it's tough to give up and says, I'm going to try to build another house somewhere else. You have already something that is going, so you're going to come back to that place.
Interesting. Really interesting. I think you already answered the follow-up question on that, which was, are you actually seeing more engagement among users that interact with content versus those that just simply just consume it? But it's
very clear. There's not even a doubt in this.
I actually am very curious, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me was You are doing a combination of both, of creating unique content formats that are very engaging. You do that on your own platforms, and you have the 3 apps that you showed us earlier, but then you also distribute and you have content that is distributed through social networks like Snapchat.
Mhm.
Why a combination of both?
So two main reasons. The first one, it's always very good to go on platforms that have a very large distribution, because that gets you in front of a much bigger audience. So if you have a brand or a format attached to it, and that brand or that format exists on its own, that is amazing exposure. And that was the reason of the Wishbone Discover channel on Snap. We have about 20 million-ish every month coming to the channel that are getting exposed to the brand itself and in the format that is the format of Wishbone, the app. So that creates a lot of virality, brand exposure, users that are coming back to the app, which in the app, we monetize those users. What is great actually on Snap is actually we also monetize, Snap monetized, and it's a rev share on it. So we also make money. So it's basically we're getting paid to advertise our own app. You cannot get any better than that. So that's one big reason. The second reason is why Snap and not necessarily Facebook or Instagram or any of those is because Snap, I'm a huge Snap believer. For our audience, I think it's probably the best app. Now TikTok comes along, and TikTok has also a lot of very good things. But when it comes to build new format, Snaps has created a lot of opportunity for us to innovate in the format and to get those formats in front of a lot of users very quickly. So for me, I see that as also a way to test and to innovate on new format. And if I see those formats working, then well, I'm going to build an app. So those are the two key elements. And I would say maybe there's a third one, which is a very similar concept that was what was happening in the I would call that the old media, which is on TV. You create the content, it's available on your network. Once you have distributed that content once, why don't you syndicate that content and try to make even more money out of this piece of content? That's what it is. Like, I create the content regardless. If someone else wants it, then why not? So that's also this concept of syndication is a very interesting concept.
Interesting.
But what I would add, doing the opposite, where you just build on top of platforms, at this point, you just become a content creator and you are at the mercy of the platform. And if that platform goes away, or if for whatever reason they don't give you the distribution that you used to get, you're out of business. So I would say you can allow yourself to do that like we do, as long as you have what we call your own and operate.
Really interesting. I think you're one of the very few that understands that having and participating in distributing content on social networks, I mean, the discovery factor is what's amazing about it. But then driving them to your own tools or apps, and that way you can keep your audience engaged in a different way and monetize from that as well, also benefit.
Yep.
Like, it's, for some reason, it seems for a lot of companies it's either or, but for you, you've done both, which is very interesting from a content perspective.
I agree. For me, it cannot be a either or. It should be both. And it could be maybe either or if you decide to just do own and operated and you have your own apps. It feels really dangerous to be on the other side to just create for a platform. I've seen few companies doing that. And there's maybe an angle where it says I'm creating IP, then that IP can move upstream and can turn into shows, and maybe, but that is a very long journey where the odds are really against you. So I think it's a dangerous path.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's because that's what it feels like in the media space, is that the bet is on creating an IP, and that IP, hopefully you can sell it, and whether it turns into some type of product, service, or movie, etc. But it's exciting to see that you're taking advantage of both worlds at the same time, because you see the value of doing that, and you're hedging against the risk, but you're capitalizing on discoverability, you're generating multiple revenue streams. Very smart. Also,
appreciate it. You just made my day.
what's interesting about you is you mentioned a little bit earlier that the content that you're creating, even though it is engaging, it's much cheaper to produce, but how do you create content at scale? Even though it is very engaging content, it is a very unique content form for each of the 3 different apps. Can you create content at scale?
We do. When you see the amount of content going in each of our apps on a daily basis, along with on all the different channels that we just discussed, how you do it, you need to have a very talented team. And that's why also we are in LA. Even we used to have an office. We don't have an office anymore. It doesn't really mean anything anymore, but we're still all in LA because there's a lot of talent that knows how to create content. The second thing is you need to do Gen Z content made by Gen Zs. So we are also, the team is a very young team that just live and breathe that kind of content. They consume so much. The time spent on average by a Gen Z on the phone is about 8 hours a day, just so we know, right? On average, I'm not taking the top quartile, I'm talking average. So that audience spends so much time. So our team already consumes so much that it is easy for them to create because that's what they consume. That's what they were born with. Now, also to be fair, is we create at scale, but it's not like we are writing a book every day. This is very short content. So there are like 2 images next to each other. Stories are about, let's call it 200 lines stories. So it is fairly fast when you know how to write. The second thing that we have is we feed the team with a lot of data, right? So we have a closed loop to all the writers on how their content has performed in terms of engagement. For a Wishbone content, they know exactly how many people voted on it, how many people skipped and didn't want to vote on it. On the story on Yarn, they will know exactly how many users went to the first third of the story, the second third, all the way to the end. They know when people dropped off within the story, line by line, so they can rewrite or create new content very quickly by learning. Actually, in Yarn, the title of the story may never have changed. The top story, the top idea, the main idea in the story is the same, but the content may have changed several times over weeks of time because we got the data that tells us actually here people drop off. They don't really like what's going on here. So we iterate really fast. So answering your question, can we do it at scale? Yes, we do. And actually, it's not really a large team. We probably have 7 or 8 people full-time that just crank the content. But yes, it's a lot of content every day, but it's consumed by millions of users. So it is efficient.
Interesting. That kind of leads me into my next question, because I'm just curious about your perspective on this. You may have already answered it, but do you think content creation is an art form, or do you think it's a data-driven decision-making process?
So I would say we phrase that maybe for content creation on mobile, I think. And content creation on mobile, I think it's, to be honest, it's probably, I don't know if it's 50-50, but it's definitely both. I would say probably more 70-30, 70 data, 30% art, maybe is more accurate, but you still need to have the art factor in it. You need to be creative. You need to have the ideas. You need to be able to literally come up with new things all the time. And so you cannot just have an AI engine spitting out some new ideas. You need to have a human being coming up with ideas and writing content. Now, if it's just that, it's not going to work. You need to put it out. And that's a big thing. You cannot wait to think to make it perfect, which a lot of writers have a problem with because they are going to overthink their story to make sure it's perfect, but it's perfect for them. What they don't realize, it may not be perfect for the audience. So we are really pushing writers to push our content out immediately because we will collect data very quickly and the data will tell you it's good. No, it's not good. Very rarely we just pull the content because it doesn't work. most of the time we actually just edit the content to make it better. And when I say better, it doesn't mean that it was not good the first time around by quality standards of a writer, but it was not good in terms of engagement with the audience that we are presenting the content to.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like you're in a position where you have talented artists and it's really just pushing them in the right direction of the content that they should be creating. And then that way it reaches more individuals and it touches more individuals more than it does if you just randomly create content that may not have the same type of engagement, but still fantastic pieces of art.
And you will see that, right, in the writers. You will have two different type of writers. You will have the writers that are like, give me the data, I want it, I want to learn, I want to get better. And you have the writers like, they don't like it, is because they don't know what they're talking about. You have those two. And for me, I'm not even arguing. I know that the person that will perform well in our environment is someone that can accept this data. And I said at all level, at a very junior level, but also we work with like show writers. And we have show writers that are on TV, big shows, and some that I know what I'm doing. I had that many people watching my show on TV, and they don't want to talk to us even about getting data back. But then we have worked with this show writer, Winona Earp on FX, and the show writer was so excited about it. She started writing herself stories on Yarn and getting the data and updating, and she was all over it. When he's like, I was feeling bad. I was like, I appreciate you do that, but you also have a show on TV too. But she was super excited about it. And so I think it's just different kind of DNA. You have different writers.
Interesting. I also, switching gears a little bit, I wanted to highlight another product that you guys offer that's outside of the content space. You guys are a powerhouse. I don't know how you do it, but you have a tool called Promotely, which is an influencer platform. I won't say, I'll let you take it. And I'm curious, what is Promotely? And
Actually, it's really all about content. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what. It's so Promotely is a creator network really focused on TikTok. There's some Snapchat creators in the mix, but mostly right now focused on TikTok. And why content? Actually, TikTok is the first platform where it's all about the content that you create and not your marketing skills. It's all about how good of a content creator you are. And what I mean by that is, to be successful on TikTok, you have to be genuine. It doesn't have to be 300 filters on it, Photoshop for 20 hours in order to work, which is more like the Instagram way of dealing with content. On TikTok, it's live action, meaning it's a person most of the time that has to create the content. And it has to be super genuine. That's what the algorithm rewards. What does that mean? It means that if you want to be on that platform, you have to have someone that can talk and that can be super engaging. So as an app publisher, and we started this project just for us because we wanted to promote our apps to the audience on TikTok, because this is our core audience. This is the core Gen Z app of the year. So we need to engage there. So we started working with creators, reaching out to them like, we would like you to promote our app, but we realized all the inefficiencies of doing that. So can we build a platform to automate that process? Could we create, and in the audience, maybe there's people that remember those days of the affiliate days of like link share. You have a website, you want to make money out of your website, you go out there, you find an offer, you put the offer in your website, and as anytime people click on it, you make money. For social media, it's the same thing. On TikTok, it's the same thing. We have an audience, you want to monetize your audience. Could I go and promote an offer and make money from that offer? Like, we have a couple apps that we would promote. So can we create that kind of a platform that would work? And that's how Promotely was born. It's for Wishbone, Yarn, and Encounters to be promoted by creators on TikTok. We didn't necessarily expect that, but it worked really well the first 6 months when it was just our apps. We drove millions of installs through the network, through about over 5,000 creators that were talking about Wishbone, promoting the app, telling their audience to go in the bio, click on the link to download the app. They were being paid for every download that they were generating. As we are getting that success, a lot of other app publishers, I've seen what you're doing there. Can we get in? It's like, I'm not sure. I built it for myself. I don't know if I want to open it up. as I saw a lot of inbound, when you see that happening, where you have started getting a lot of inbound without doing any marketing, you know you're on something pretty strong. So that's when we started to open it up to more like friendly app publishers, people that I knew and that would love to test it. And guess what? They tested, they got the same results that we got. So then we started to open it up to any app publishers, as long as they don't compete with our apps. That was the only thing. But what we learned from that, we learned so much. The other thing that we learned that the brands are latching on right now is, in order to be successful on TikTok for their app or for their brand, for, let's call it a consumer product, I don't know, a bottle of water, if you want to promote on TikTok, you have to be super genuine. And the best way to do that is actually to have a creator creating a 15 seconds to 20 seconds video like they would create any other content piece, but integrate the brand in that content. And what is happening now is we have a lot of brands that are not even really caring about the creator to post that video on their profile and get their audience to engage, but they want the creative itself. They want the video, because with this video, they're going to use this video as an ad creative that they will put paid media behind it, because that video will engage and promote better than any other videos that they will put out there. So now we worked with a lot of brands and creators brand creators and app publishers just to create content. And back to what I was saying at the beginning, that's where it's again, all about the content, all about the engagement.
Really interesting. It's funny how you built something that you needed and realize it works for you, and then it's fantastic that it turns into another, product line that can also be beneficial to other individuals in the industry.
Yeah.
So the services, just to clarify, what is the types, specifically the services that Promotely offers to apps and brands?
So we have several services. We have three right now. The first service is to get your app or product promoted, and we offer it on a performance basis. Meaning, for example, for an app, you will come in and you will pay for every single download that you drive. So as an app publisher, we like to mitigate the risk, but also we like to give the upside to the creator. If the creator is really good, if the creator is not good, you won't get any upside either. But I think it's fair to both parties. So that's how we educated the creators this way, and they really get it, because the good ones really can be making a lot of money this way. And also it's very profitable for the app publisher themselves, because if they have a very engaged audience, the quality of the users coming in is going to be very good. So that's the first product. The second product is the one I was just talking about. We offer access to talent to create videos, content that they can use wherever they want on any digital platform. So they come with an idea, or most of the time with the positioning of their product. We put that in front of our creators. Creators say, I would love to create 15, 20 seconds on this. They create, they give the video back to the brand. The brand pays a certain fee to get access to all of this, and then they use that for promotional purposes. So I would call that just content creation for promotional purpose. That's the second product. The third one is actually something that came out of those first two, where a lot of brands are coming and says, okay, I get it. Now I know I can promote, but I really need help with my profile on TikTok. I have this big social team, but they have no clue how to deal with TikTok, because they know how to do Instagram, they know how to do Facebook and so on, but they don't know how to do TikTok, because I cannot ask them to get in front of the camera and create content. They are not content creators. It's like, you're right, they are not. They are marketers. And so what we offer now is we pair a brand with a creator. That creator becomes the person that will post on actually a daily basis on their profile and will grow organically their profile. So we put their account in the hands of a creator, and that creator will work the brand and create the presence, the social presence on TikTok for that brand.
Awesome. Very cool. And I this win-win business model, I think it's brilliant. I mean, you talked about that it's performance-driven payment model. So, you're saving themselves cash by not overpaying or underpaying a creator. And a creator is paid exactly for the performance that they drive. And then they have the choice and the option for how they'd like to produce that and share that content. I mean, it's fantastic. I remember the days where Instagram, you'd pay a creator an X amount of money to hopefully post a post whenever they can. And maybe they do it, maybe it's sometime in the future, whatever. And you don't know how that's going to engage and drive traffic back to your platform. And so I think this is a fantastic model that you guys.
And honestly, the only one that don't like this model are the one that you don't want to have to post for you. Because the one that don't like this model have a poorly engaged audience. And so if you are going to pay them flat fee, you would lose a lot of money. And I had those ones back in the days. We were doing a lot on YouTube, and we had a lot of people with like very large subscribers amount on their channel, and nothing was coming out of it. And actually, the one that really like it are the one that have really good content and actually are being undercut by the marketplace itself and by the brands, because they'll, let's say, paid even like big influencers. I won't mention the name because I don't want to create problems with that. But I work with big influencers that we're charging a lot of money. I paid $100,000 for a post on YouTube for a single creator. And I was like, I knew based on the numbers I've done, I knew it was worth more. And but because it's a six-figure amount, I was like, I'd rather go on the per download because it would probably be a lot better for me if that goes sideways. And the creator want to. So I still went with the 100K post. If I had paid on the per download basis, it would have cost me $250,000. So because the engagement was super strong. At $250,000, it was still profitable for me because I would have paid on a per install, which I knew what the install is worth. But the creator, yes, don't get me wrong, creator doesn't feel bad. The creator got $100,000. But the real value of that creator was $250,000. So that's where creators, they realize very quickly that it could be worth a lot more than just whatever a brand wants to give them on a flat fee basis.
Fantastic. No, I think it's a great model. Do you know what is the typical apps or brands that would really benefit from Promotely?
Obviously, there's one category, which are the app publishers, very well defined, and we know how it works. We've been working with a lot of food and beverages company right now that are also working really well. And then the obvious one is all the D2C brands, right? The direct to consumer brands, because they need to have direct transaction and the funnel is well defined so they can understand performance. So for us, the D2C brand are a very good category for that model.
Definitely makes sense. I now want to take a step back from the products and get a little bit more general and high level. But before I even do that, I'm just curious on what is the business model that your company operates on? It feels like it's a few. Content space, especially, or the content category as a whole, for a lot of companies, they seem like they struggle to find sustainable business models that kind of keeps their content afloat. And I have a follow-up for that, but I'm just curious, what is the type of business models that you guys work with?
That's a very good question. And honestly, this is where that's why the gaming days are helping a lot, because it has to be a mix of the three key monetization practices on mobile. When it comes to the app and when it comes to the content on platform. But when it comes into the app, it's a mix of advertising, in-app purchase, and subscription. And the three are always available, but the weight of each one can vary. Meaning that an app, Wishbone, is extremely heavy on the advertising side. The ad load is extremely high because the audience can bear with it and doesn't necessarily want to pay for that kind of an experience. On Yarn, it's extremely heavy on subscription. But there is advertising and there is in-app purchase too, because it's premium, very premium content, and they are okay to pay X amount of dollars to read stories, which is more something that they are used to. They understand that concept. And then we have encounters, which is really heavy on in-app purchase, but still subscription and advertising is also there. But because you are building a new story over time, it made a lot of sense and makes a lot of sense as you flow through it to not pay on a subscription basis, even if that's an option, but to more pay as you go. And you acquire more currency and you spend that currency as you go through the story. So You have to be able to understand the three monetization to be successful when it comes to content on mobile. You cannot just say, I'm going to be all in on one, because it's not going to work. You have different audience, even in the same audience, you have different segments of users. You have users that cannot commit to a subscription. You have users that cannot just swipe their credit cards every time. They need to get a deal through a subscription. You have the ones that will never transact, that will just get ads, even if it's annoying to watch a 15, 30-second ads. They won't swipe their credit card on content. So you need to have those three, and you need to understand your users as they are in the app, so you can present to them at the right time the right monetization.
It makes sense, and I think that's what kind of stands out is it seems like you have a very diversified approach, and especially for the different apps that you experiment with, I think it's really great. I'm just curious, generally, to get your thoughts on this. It feels like content starts to feel like a feature more than it is like the primary means of monetization. And it seems like, and you see this more for like influencers, and maybe it's because the platforms don't enable them to monetize in the way that they'd like, but it's as opposed to being the content as the primary feature, that you're relying on upselling a different type of product, as opposed to working or relying on ads, or especially if you're a publisher producing content for your own platform. What is your thoughts on this idea? Do you agree with this idea that content is starting to become a feature, or not really?
Not really. I think what it comes down to, content could be a lot of things, but I think what it comes down to, it's entertainment. It's time on the screen. And so people are looking at what can get them engaged and excited and entertained when they turn on their phone. For a very long time, it was either their social feed, and they swipe up and they go in and they refresh, pulling down and refresh, or more on the male audience side, they were turning on a game. Now it's not enough. They realize that, okay, I'd love to do more than that, because I'm really tired of having this phone on Instagram, and I'm also don't want to play games. What else can I get? I'm not going to turn on the TV because I don't want to spend 60 minutes on a show. What else could I get? So they are looking for those new experiences. So I think that it just comes down to, I need to get entertained. Give me something that will entertain. And that's where content comes in. So content may be a feature for entertainment. That's, I think, what it is. It's not a feature for monetization. It's a feature for entertainment. And then once you get those users engaged, then monetization comes one way or another, because you're not running a nonprofit and you need, obviously, to make money in order to produce the content. But also, that's why you have to be very smart, and maybe not really the level of details that we want to get in today, but it comes down to your LTV to CAC ratio. You're going to make a certain amount of money, and you're going to have to pay a certain amount of money to get in front of that user. So in order to scale, you're going to have this LTV CAC ratio that works. So yes, at that point, content becomes a feature to monetization. But first and foremost, content is a key element of entertainment.
Very interesting. And I think it's a hard question to ask, and it's just because it's a loaded question, or it's hard to define content, because content can be a lot of different things. But no, I think that it definitely makes sense at a high level. I only have two more questions left, and thanks, Benoit, for taking so much time. I really appreciate
it. No worries. Love this.
I'm curious. Given the time period that we're in right now, we've gone through a pandemic. Has the pandemic affected your industry at all, or your company?
Yeah, I would say the only way that it affected is, as any business, you don't know what's next. So you're moving forward a little bit more carefully. You may not be making bets as bullish as they would be in a more normal time, because what the economy is all about. But in terms of, I think we're the lucky one, because there is so much more time spent on the device. So actually, in terms of audience size, it's been amazing. It's been one of the best time for us, right? Feels weird to say that when it's been so tough out there. But I think we've been one of those lucky business. And for me, as an entrepreneur, when I look at all the entrepreneurs out there in small and medium businesses that are struggling every day, I am very grateful for what we have. So yes, it's been a little bit more challenging because you don't know what's happening tomorrow, but overall, it's been very positive.
Interesting. No, it definitely seems the content or media industry as a whole has generally been on the positive side of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's good, and generally, especially for digital content overall, especially for a lot of artists and creators, I think as well.
And again, that goes back to the question that you asked around monetization. That's where also you need to have those three monetization, because when time change, the ratio of ads versus subscription versus IAP may change based on how much disposable income you have. In times of where there's a lot of disposable income, maybe subscription will work really well. When times are tough, you may rather watch an ad and not have to pay for it. But also sometimes you may not want to run ads because the CPM are not there, because the advertisers don't want to push ads right now. So it's good to have IAP. So that's why, in order to be successful with media those days, you need to be able to deal with those three monetizations.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic that you have that flexibility. I think it's really smart. Last question that I had for you. I already think that Mammoth Media is the future of media, but I'm just curious, where do you think the future of entertainment content or content generally is going, and what do you see that most people don't?
I think what I'm very bullish on, obviously innovation of format. I can see a ton of formats. I'm not this AR, VR guy. I don't believe in it. There's going to be a lot of cool things happening, but actually I'm more bullish on the format itself, regardless of the device. I don't know what the devices will be in 10 years from now. If it's going to be contact that you have on your eye or something in your brain, I have no idea. So as long as the format of the experience is what you really focus on, this is what that matters. But I think for me, where I'm really bullish on and I'm really focusing on and thinking about is thinking about content creation. Who are the best people at creating content those days? Those content creators are the best, right? Those, especially with the rise of TikTok, you see some really good content being created. When it comes to entertainment, I'm just talking entertainment here. And they are the best entertainer because it is 15 seconds of pure genuine content. As this is cool, this is fun. They trigger that emotion, fear, fun, doesn't matter. You like love, you get that emotion very quickly. It's the pure definition of entertainment. So when you take that, I think what is going to become is those creators will become brands and will become product. And what I mean by that is, let's take any big creator, Charlotte D'Amelio, right? Let's take the biggest on TikTok. Right now, she's still taking a very standard approach. You get your agent, you get deals with brands, you just monetize your status. I think things are going to change. I think when you get that kind of fame and that kind of scale, you will become the show and you will not know if you're in fiction or reality. And I think that's where it's coming. And I'm really bullish in building something like that, where creators, you're going to witness what they do and it is going to be so entertaining, but you don't know where the line is. You're going to know if it's scripted, not scripted, is it real life? And then we're going to start introducing some very interesting monetization. The one that's really exciting right now, like we are thinking currency in a game, right? We're talking about you get some coins. What about we create a real currency? Look at what happened with Dogecoin right now, like where it's currency created by the people. What about if now this experience we're creating a real currency that has value in the world within that entertainment piece with creators in front of you living this life, and you can spend some dollars to get them to do things. You create a real game storytelling in front of you without having being in front of your phone all the time. So this is way out there, but I think there's something really fun in the future, and I really want to be part of this.
No, incredible, exciting. I already thought you were at the cutting edge of media, and it's even how you see it looks further out. It's awesome. It'll be a really interesting dynamic, I think, especially right for the creators for the future. Benoit, with that, thank you so much again for taking so much time. Before I close out, is there anything that you wanted to share, ask, or announce to the audience?
No, really, thanks a lot for having me. I love to share all of this. Follow me on Twitter. I keep sharing all of this at BVATERE. It's all about Gen Z, so feel free to look at what's out there. But if there are any entrepreneurs out there, don't give up. Keep going, keep building. You will be successful. You will win. Go at it.
Fantastic. No, this was awesome. It was really awesome. And again, for the audience, why we had this conversation in a little bit more context. And we looked at 1,000 companies, well over 1,000 companies in the content space across every single different type of content category and format. And one of the companies that stood out to us was Mammoth Media, and you got to see why. You guys are at the cutting edge of not only ways in which you've created content that you engage with the audience, especially for the Gen Z that's spending a ridiculous amount of time online and especially on their phones. But it's impressive even on the back end to see as a media company recognizing that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're diversifying not only the ways in which you engage with your audience, taking advantage of discovery, building out your own apps though, and at the same time, you have multiple business models that you are flexible with, can evolve on. And then you took it one step further and you built out your own platform to promote your apps that's done so well that now you also have that as a service as well. And that's, I think, is also extremely innovative on this idea of how you create a win-win model for creators. I mean, you guys are a powerhouse. This was fantastic, Benoit. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. Really appreciate it.